I was a fool to get sore because Joe Paradise didn't jump up and hug me. He's one of these woodsmen, too wise to go yelping and talking your arm off like a city man. But get him back in the mountains, out on the trail, that's real living. 4. Joe reported at Babbitt's cabin at 9 the next morning. Babbitt greeted him as a fellow caveman. "Well, Joe, how'd you feel about hitting the trail and getting away from these darn soft summaries and women and all?" "All right, Mr. Babbitt." "What do you say we go over to Boxcar Pond? They tell me the shack there isn't being used, and camp out." "Well, all right, Mr. Babbitt, but it's nearer to Socket Pond, and you can get just about as good fishing there." "No, I want to get out into the real wilds." "Well, all right." "We'll put the old packs on our backs and get into the woods and really hike." "I think maybe it would be easier to go by water through Lake Chogue. We can go all the way by motorboat, flat bottom boat with an Evinrude." "No, sir. Bust up the Quiet with a chugging motor? Not on your life. You just throw a pair of socks in the old pack and tell 'em what you want for eats. I'll be ready soon as you are." "Most of the sports go by boat, Mr. Babbitt. It's a long walk." "Look here, Joe, are you objecting to walking?" "Oh, no, I guess I can do it. But I haven't tramped for 16 years. Most of the sports go by boat, but I can do it if you say so, I guess." Joe walked away in sadness. Babbitt had recovered from his touchy wrath before Joe returned. He pictured him as warming up and telling the most entertaining stories, but Joe had not yet warmed up when they took the trail. He persistently kept behind Babbitt, and however much his shoulders ached from the pack, however sorely he panted, Babbitt could hear his guide panting equally. But the trail was satisfying, a path brown with pine needles and rough with roots, among the balsams and ferns, the sudden groves of white birch. He became credulous again and rejoiced in sweating. When he stopped to rest he chuckled. "Guess we're hitting it up pretty good for a couple of old birds, huh?" "Uh-huh," admitted Joe. "This is a mighty pretty place. Look, you can see the lake down through the trees. I tell you, Joe, you don't appreciate how lucky you are to live in the woods like this, instead of in a city with trolleys grinding with typewriters clacking and people bothering the life out of you all the time. I wish I knew the woods like you do. Say, what's the name of that little red flower?" Rubbing his back, Joe regarded the flower resentfully. "Well, some folks call it one thing and some folks call it another. I guess I just call it a pink flower." Babbitt blessedly ceased thinking as tramping turned into blind plodding. He was submerged in weariness. His plump legs seemed to go on by themselves without guidance, and he mechanically wiped away the sweat which stung his eyes. He was too tired to be consciously glad as, after sun-scourged mile of corduroy tote road through the swamp where flies hovered over a hot waste of brush, they reached the cool shore of Boxcar Pond. When he lifted the pack from his back, he staggered from the change in balance, and for a moment could not stand erect. He lay beneath an ample blossomed maple tree near the guest shack and joyously felt sleep running through his veins. He awoke towards dusk, and to find Joe efficiently cooking bacon and eggs and flapjacks for supper, and his admiration of the woodsman returned. He sat on a stump and felt virile. "Joe, what would you do if you had a lot of money? Would you stick to guiding, or would you take a claim way back in the woods and be independent of people?" For the first time Joe brightened. He chewed his cud a second and bubbled, "I've often thought about that. If I had the money, I'd go down to Tinker's Falls and open a swell shoe store." After supper Joe proposed a game of stud poker, but Babbitt refused with brevity, and Joe contentedly went to bed at 8. Babbitt sat on the stump, facing the dark pond, slapping mosquitoes. Save the snoring guide, there was no other human being within 10 miles. He was lonelier than he had ever been in his life. Then he was in Zenith. He was worrying as to whether Miss McGowan wasn't paying too much for carbon paper. He was at once resenting and missing the persistent teasing at the Roughnecks table. He was wondering what Zilla Riesling was doing now. He was wondering whether, after the summer's maturity of being a garage man, Ted would get busy in the university. He was thinking of his wife. If she wouldn't be so darn satisfied with just settling down. No, I won't. I won't go back. I'll be 50 in 3 years, 60 in 13 years. I'm going to have some fun before it's too late. I don't care. I will." He thought of Ida Putnick and Luella Swanson, of the nice widow, what was her name, Tanis Judique, the one for whom he'd found the flat. He was enmeshed in imaginary conversations. Then, "Gee, I can't seem to get away from thinking about folks." Thus it came to him merely to run away was folly, because he could never run away from himself. That moment he started for Zenith. In his journey there was no appearance of flight, but he was fleeing, and 4 days afterwards he was on the Zenith train. He knew that he was slinking back, not because it was what he longed to do, but because it was all he could do. He scanned again his discovery that he could never run away from Zenith and family and office, because in his own brain he bore the office and the family and every street and disquiet and illusion of Zenith. "But I'm going to. Oh, I'm going to start something," he vowed, and he tried to make it valiant. Chapter 25